Supers to the side, video 1. Why to build this absolute sweetheart of a horizontal hive if you're a hobby beekeeper. Hobby beekeepers have lots of options when it comes to choosing their hives. When I looked into getting my first hives, I looked at the pluses and minuses of 5 different options from 2 different standpoints. 1, from that of a 5'4" middle-aged woman, me, and 2, from the bees themselves. Full disclosure, my background is that of a retired veterinarian with a long-standing interest in canine behavior, so I know the problems that can ensue unnecessarily when our approach to a different species reflects only human culture and not that of the animal, or in this case, the insect that we're working with. If you've got dogs, you'll find lots of practical canine behavior videos on our givesmiles.us YouTube channel and our website, givesmiles.us. For beekeepers, both new and more experienced, you'll also find occasional presentations on bee behavior and hive design, uploaded after their presentation at county bee club meetings and state conferences. Today's topic reflects my search for the perfect hive, one that gives my bees what they want, with a few nice things thrown in for me too. The beekeeping classes I attended through my local bee associations emphasized standard vertical Langstroth hives in 8 and 10 frame widths, and this reflected many years of tradition and this hive's adaptability to commercial beekeeping situations. But these hives necessitate heavy lifting, and I needed to avoid that due to a grumpy back and strength issues in my arms. Also, I was never going to be a commercial beekeeper. Vertical nucleus hives in 4 or 5 frame widths cut the weight of the hive boxes down. But colonies in these hives can build up fast with little room for expansion. I wound up getting a few of these hives, and I found their strength was being used as bait hives in swarm traps. I now leave a few 5-frame double nukes out in my apiary for that very purpose. Because I love the idea of having everything I need at a reasonable working height, as opposed to leaning over to pick heavy things up, I was intrigued by the idea of horizontal hives. But horizontal hives aren't all the same, not even close. I ruled out using top bar hives because to me, not having to crush honeycomb to harvest honey just seemed more respectful of all the hard work that bees put into building comb. I liked the idea of long langs and have since built 2 that I use for propagation of nucleus colonies. But the depth of only 1 deep frame is quite limiting when bees are building out brood and storing and accessing their resources. Layens hives, with their deeper and narrower 13 by 16 inch frames, give bees so much extra room for their brood and resources. They're nicely insulated against the cold of the winter and the heat of a North Carolina midsummer sun, and the bees love them. Just ask anyone who has these hives. But Layens frames don't fit into a standard honey extractor, and the extractor that is needed is pretty pricey. I just couldn't get around that budget-wise. So what to do? What to do? I knew my achy old back wanted a horizontal hive, and I liked how horizontal hives offered lots of table height elbow room for beekeepers. I knew my bees would thrive given an insulated hive with decent-sized frames that allowed lots of room for them to do their thing. My budget called for me to be able to use a standard Langstroth extractor, and I wanted a few perks that made observation of my hives and integrated pest management easier. I'll get to them shortly. Since I just wasn't finding the hive of my dreams, I pulled out the drawing board. A big box long hive, the supers to the side hive, was the result. It's an insulated 2-colony horizontal hive with mega frames for brood and standard deep and medium Langstroth supers for honey. Awesome. I still couldn't believe that no one had come up with the same design. Bits and pieces of it? Yes, but not the exact same hive. The closest I found was a hive that Jean Herpin designed back in the mid-1900s. It had large frames for brood and standard frames for honey. But that said, Jean Herpin's hive wasn't well insulated, and it had 3 problems as I saw them that my own hive design solved. First, and most important, was it didn't allow for easy flexibility in the size of the brood chamber. This impacted the number of honey frames that could be used. Second, I thought this dead space could be better utilized for honey production. And third, locating the bees' entrance and therefore their brood nest in the middle of the hive forced the bees to split their honey stores to the left and the right as opposed to build it out from the brood nest on one side. So fast forward 20 months. After building 5 2-colony supers to the side hives, installing 10 bee colonies in them, 2 packages, 4 splits, 1 feral bee cutout, and 3 swarms, putting everyone through 6 real-life seasons of use, measuring both hive temperatures and humidity throughout the year, and comparing these hives to 3 other styles of hives in the same apiary, both Langstroth and Long. Oh my goodness, I love these supers to the side hives. The bees love them, and I'm absolutely loving the honey they're producing. Let me count some of the reasons this hive has become our favorite style of hive to work. Number 1 is a supers to the side hive is so easy to use and just plain fun to work. Like with other horizontal hives, it's easy to uncover the part of the hive you wish to view without upsetting the entire colony. 2. Like other horizontal hives, a supers to the side hive is kind to your back and to your knees. No leaning down, no heavy lifting. Everything you need is at a tabletop working height. Speaking of tabletops, these hives offer lots of room to rest things. Your hive tools, extra frames, packages of new bees, a little sugar syrup, items you don't want to lay on the ground. There's lots of room for one of my favorite tools, this handy-to-make frame holder, sturdy enough to hold 4 frames of any size. It comes in handy when looking for eggs in your queen and for cutting out drone brood that you want to check for foundress mites. Reason number 4 that I love this hive: the mega frames used for brood and resources are easy to maneuver, allowing you to view the actions of more bees at a time. Here I want to give a shout out to Jim of Vino Farm. He was the first beekeeper that I saw using these frames, and for that, I send him much appreciation. For those new to the concept, a mega frame is the size of a Langstroth deep plus a Langstroth medium plus an inch, and they're not as heavy as you might imagine. A frame full of spring brood weighs just 4 to 5 pounds, and a frame half full of capped honey going into the winter weighs about 8.5 pounds. Not unreasonable at all. They are built using standard Langstroth tops and bottoms, and you can purchase the 16-inch side pieces from Little Creek Farms at lc-farms.com. The added supports I use are simple to add bamboo skewers, to which I attach a natural wax starter strip. Plastic or wired wax foundation could be used instead of the skewer and starter strip, your choice. You would simply need to add a few wedges of wood in strategic places to hold your foundation in place. These honey frame skewers were purchased at Walmart, 100 skewers for 97 cents. These longer and wider garden skewers were purchased on Amazon for 12 cents each in packets of 60. Of course, you could also use wire if you choose. I've used mega frames for brood in 5 2-colony supers to the side hives, 4 converted Langstroth hives customized to add a 1-inch shim between the top and the bottom brood boxes so they accommodate a 16-inch frame over at least a 1 inch of free space, and 4 double 5-frame nucleus hives when they aren't being used as bait hives. I also used 3 mega frames under 3 deep frames in my observation hive. It sits on the counter between my living room and my kitchen, with a bee entrance that goes to the back of the house. The bees were ever so happy to build out the mega frames, ignoring the deep frames until they absolutely needed them. Like the 13 by 16 inch Layens frames, 19 by 16 inch mega frames allow lots of important winter resources to be stored above the brood. Top bar and long lang hives just don't have this kind of room for resources above the winter brood. When it comes to honey extraction, this hive utilizes standard Langstroth deep and medium frames, so special extractors aren't needed. Yay! After trimming the arms of a medium frame a little on each side, I attach it to the bottom of a deep frame using stainless steel zip ties. At 14 cents a piece, these ties are easy to secure and remove as needed. A note for those of you who want to switch frames between vertical and horizontal hives: even with their shoulders trimmed back, these medium frames can still be used in a Langstroth super using a simple wooden shim. Remember that Jean Herpen hive that I mentioned? The supers to the side long hive utilizes all that dead space to produce honey, and the number of honey frames and the length of the brood chamber, they're completely flexible. Reason number 6 that I love this hive design. It incorporates some very convenient features, 4 of which are IPM oil pans to trap small hive beetles, wax moth larvae, and falling varroa mites. Ports over the brood to make delivering oxalic acid using our Laura Bee's Instant Vap a breeze. Bee escapes on either side of the roof, so the occasional bee that doesn't leave when the roof is closed can still find her way out. And see-through inner covers with holes for rapid round feeders and fondant. Oh my gosh, I love these see-through inner covers. On any but the coldest of winter days, that is anytime the ambient temperatures are over 55, I can check bee numbers, activity, and food consumption without breaking any propolis seals. Using some inexpensive Gobi sensors, I can see hive temperature and humidity with just a glance. Placed under each observation window, these 2-inch by 3-inch sensors are completely ignored by bees, and surprisingly, propolis has never been much of an issue. I love my clear observation inner covers so much that I've made them in 2 sizes. The 14-inch fits all of my long hives, plus my converted Langstroth hives, and it's great for spring through fall. The 9.5-inch cover fits both my long hives and my 5-frame nucleus hives, and it's excellent for winter use when the size of the brood nest is reduced. During the winter, when I use fondant as an emergency feed, I simply place a fondant patty on the top of the inner cover over the round hole seen corked in the picture on the left. When utilizing the hole in the inner cover to treat a hive with OA vapor, I use a different cork with a short piece of high-temperature silicone tubing set through the middle at a slight angle. Each colony has their own OA cork, which eliminates having to stop between hives to clean crystallized OA out of the tubing. When working with one colony, I place a hand towel over the inner cover of the other one so as not to disturb them. It works great. Reason number 7, I love these hives. Their insulation, which runs from R7 on the sides to R10 on the top, keeps a lot of the heat out in the truly hot summer, and it helps to keep the heat of the bees in the hive during the cold winter months, more similar to your average bee tree than your typical less than R1 rated vertical Langstroth hive. In the high heat of August, temperatures in the supers to the side hives were 5 to 7 degrees cooler than my other hives, and where I saw occasional bearding on my Langstroth hives, they have R10 insulation on the top only, it was rare to see bearding on my long hives, usually only when a colony's numbers are really slamming. On the colder days of December, temperatures in these insulated hives were a full 11 to 20 degrees warmer than the other hives. Here it is November 22nd, an overcast day of 55 degrees after a week of temperatures in the mid-30s and low 40s. You can tell by the flowers we haven't had a killing frost yet. Check out the cleansing flights and the orientation flights of the bees in the insulated hives. Compare them to the bee activity out of the Langstroth hives. Those gals are still pretty cold. R7 to R10 insulation all around with no cracks also helps to keep winter condensation down. Here are the humidity readings on December 24th. The hives marked CL are my converted Langstroths, and the hives marked SS are the supers to the side hives. 85%, 77%, 71%, and 88%. There was a lot more humidity in the Langstroths, and where you see the asterisk, that's where condensation could actually be seen around the edges of the hive. Contrast that with 55%, 56%, and 62% in the supers to the side hives. That is optimal winter humidity for a hive. The size of the megaframes also helps to keep winter condensation down. For example, the number of bees on 9 megaframes requires at least 13 Langstroth frames and many more top bars to hold. In the case of long Langs and top bar hives, there's the increased interface between warmer temperatures in the hive and cooler temperatures above it, increasing the risk of condensation and mildew. On to reason number 9. Since the follower boards used in the long hives allow for examination and manipulation of a bee colony with less interruption than you'd have with a vertical hive, and since megaframes give bees tons of room to move around when they're examined outside of the hive, I truly believe that grumpy bees are a lot less common, and I've never used a smoker on my bees. Lastly, reason number 10 why I love these hives is their stability. We're in a hurricane-prone area with its share of black bears. In both cases, it's the vertical hives we worry about first, less so with the supers to the side hives. The big box supers to the side hives are extremely stable in the wind, and while their stability doesn't make them bear-proof, it can't hurt should Big Boy, Barely, and their cubs come closer to our apiary than they have to date. By the way, Barely is called Barely because whenever she sees us, which is roughly once a year, she throws her little arms up in the air and heads for the hills, leaving her confused cubs behind. The local hunters think she's comical, and for years they've left her alone. As I previously mentioned, we worked with these hives for 20 months before putting together this video. We didn't want to simply share an idea before it had been put to the test in the real world, and before we had time to troubleshoot potential issues and embrace better ideas as they emerged. As a result, one modification was made on our existing hives, and 2 changes were made on our 4th and our 5th hives. The modification we made to our first hives, one that you may have noticed if you paid really close attention to some of my pictures, was made because no matter what the grade of the wood or the paint used, there is no grade of plywood that can resist the beating that comes with a North Carolina sun and schizophrenic weather changes. Our $60 fix-it-and-forget-it modification? Add vinyl siding over the plywood. And now, except for some touch-up on the trim every 2 to 3 years, we don't have to do much maintenance on our hives. The 2 modifications that we made on our 4th and 5th hives, and that we're going to be making on all our future supers to the side hives, reflect successes we've had with other hives. Instead of a gable roof, we switched to a simple angled roof that allows just enough room for a rapid round or similar feeder. Easier to construct, less expensive to construct, less dead space above the colonies. And when it comes to the underside of the roof, we've eliminated the wood. Instead, we leave our green insulation uncovered with a little expanding foam to fill in any gaps. We've made this video to show you how to construct a supers to the side hive. Using $450 worth of materials per 2 colony hive, $225 per colony, it's built in simple layers. From the bottom up, we start with a hive stand. Then we construct the support for 2 IPM oil trays. We build the lower box next using 2x6s, to which we staple number 8 mesh to line the bottom of the bee's cavity. The upper box is made from 2x12s, and a sturdy rim supplies support for the roof. From the center outward, you've got bee space sufficient for 2 large colonies, surrounded by your 2x layer, rigid R5 insulation, 3/8 inch plywood, and some trim and vinyl siding. Lastly, a roof is constructed and hinged into place. So check out our construction video, How to Build This Sweetheart of a Horizontal Hive. It includes a full tools and materials list.